First story is titled, Update. Am I the a-hole for telling my parents they only have one daughter and she is 6 feet in the ground? Original story. This all started when I was 12 years old and my younger sister was 10. Let's call her Abby. Well, Abby started to get sick and no one in the family knew what was going on. I started to be dropped off at my grandparents as they went to different doctors. I'm not going to go into her illness, but when the doctor figured it out, it was bad. So a lot of time was devoted to my sister. When I was 14, it got worse, and I started to be left at my grandparents for longer periods of time. It started with just staying the weekend, and then maybe the whole week. I would bring it up, and they told me that they have to focus on Abby. Soon, I was staying there for months, and by the time I was 16, I was basically living there full time. I would maybe see them every other month. If I texted them the whole thing, the same response was always sent. We need to focus on Abby right now. I'm 19 now, and Abby has passed away from her illness. Her funeral was 2 weeks ago, and I attended through FaceTime. I got a call today from my parents, and they wanted to meet up and be a family again. I told them that they abandoned one child for another. I'm not their child anymore, that they only have one daughter and she is 6 feet under the ground now. I soon hung up. I've been getting texts calling me an a-hole and that I should understand that they needed to focus on Abby and to suck it up basically. So am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. Was it harsh? Yes. Was it deserved? Also, yes. While I can sympathize with dealing with a terminally ill child, they still had another child that needed their love and attention too. A child that was losing her little sister, probably scared and lonely, and then freaking abandoned for 7 years. Yes, Abby needed them, but you did too, and they failed you miserably. And they failed Abby too, who might have enjoyed a relationship with her sister in the few years she did have to live. This is what I keep coming back to. It's unconscionably cruel to keep two siblings from spending time with each other while one is dying. I cannot imagine dying and not being able to have my sister around. This honestly brings tears to me. Not a a-hole. As a parent who had a terminally ill child, I made sure that my other kids still knew that I loved them, and even organized people to sit with my child in the hospital while I spent quality time with my other kids. It's hard being a parent, knowing that your child is going to die, but you don't ever push away your other kids. I'm so sorry that you were abandoned by your parents, and I'm sending you huge hugs and love right now. You have every right to be angry at them, and don't let anyone else tell you otherwise, as none of them were in your shoes. Take time to grieve for your sister and your lost relationship. And most importantly, please be kind to yourself. You do matter. Not the a-hole. While having a seriously ill child is challenging and will often take priority, it doesn't give your parents license to simply send their other child away and stop parenting them. They abandoned you, and now that your sister has passed away, they want to rug sweep their behavior and play happy family. It's completely understandable that you do not want to have a relationship with them. Therapy may be beneficial for you to process losing your entire immediate family. They need to respect your boundaries. Sorry for your loss, and good luck. They're treating her like a book they left on the nightstand. Now, 7 years later, they want to pick it up and go, "All right, where did I live off?" You can't do that with people. And now for the update. So, it's been around a month since I posted the original post. Thanks to everyone that gave their input. So after the post, I wrote a very long letter explaining my feelings about how my parents treated me and how they abandoned me for 7 years. I talked about all the major events that they missed and all the years that I could have been with my sister but couldn't due to their decision. That I haven't been part of the family ever since Abby got sick all those years ago. I talked about how my grandparents are more parents to me than they have been in these past years. That no matter the reason, they discarded me and acted as if their other kid didn't need their parents. That you may have lost Abby recently, but I lost my whole family a long time ago. And that I'm not going to give an empty apology for what I said on the phone. I sent this letter, and it was radio silent for a bit. And in the meantime, I went to my first on-campus college semester and started to use the free therapy. My parents contacted me and asked if I would like to get dinner and to hear them out. I agreed. It was a very long conversation that boiled down to I'm willing to try to get to know my parents again under 2 conditions, and if they don't agree with them, I'm going to walk away since they are basically strangers at this point. 1, that we start to go to family therapy. 2, that they don't try to parent me. That position is for my grandparents only, and I'm willing to try a relationship with them, but it won't be a parent-child relationship. They don't seem happy with these conditions, but accepted. We went to our first family session a few days ago, and our relationship is still rocky, but I think it is getting better. I may be able to forgive them someday, but that day is far in the future. Now for some top comments. I'm happy for you. I'm happy that you are doing what you believe is best for you. Despite everything, you sense to have grown into a great person. Good luck, love. Indeed, Opie has grown into a good and mature adult because of her own innate personality and her grandparents' care. A lot of people would have fallen under the weight of their parents' abandonment, the mortality of their sibling, and other issues that crops up for most teenagers, or have turned into a spiteful person. However, Opie is making peace with everything and settling strong and reasonable boundaries with her egg and sperm daughters. So glad to hear it, Opie. Book recommendation: Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. It's not a replacement for therapy, but can help in a recovery of the loss of the parental relationship. Yes, I can recommend this book as well. My psychologist and I read it, and it helped me realize why my parents don't feel like parents, but more like brother/sister. I remember your original post, and it was so sad and broke my heart. It was also so mind-blowing. I don't know if it worked out entirely, but it's great to hear an update. A second one would be great too. I think it's good you're getting therapy personally just for your peace of mind. That's the most important. I do hope you can develop some sort of relationship beyond working with your parents. But the past does bear weight in the present and future, and it's unrealistic to just forget. Your feelings are valid, and it's good you're working through it for yourself. Hopefully, everything works out and they don't endanger any more of your emotional stability. The fact you're trying says a lot of good about you, and your parents' response says a lot less to me. In my opinion, parents who really care and probably aren't r/raised by narcissists wouldn't have this reaction and would do everything to make amends for their mishandling of the past. While I understand they were in a bind, they still handled their situation wrong and poorly in my opinion. Good luck, stay safe. Hope college/university works out well for you. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for liking my stepdad but not my stepmom? I'll probably sound like a witch, but that's life. My 16 female parents, 36 female and 40 male, divorced when I was 12. In all honesty, their marriage was so sucky that it took me 6 months and my mother having to explain it twice for me to realize they were separating. And even then, I didn't particularly care. Important information: both my parents cheated and got together with their affair partners. Dad cheated during their entire marriage with different women, but my mom cheated with my current stepdad for a year before they divorced. This situation by itself sucks, but there's no use finding someone to blame when the fault lays on both of them, so I'll just present the issue. I absolutely hate my stepmom, 37 female. She's unpleasant to me whenever I'm around. Bossy, always trying to goad me into arguments so that when I lose my temper, she can go and cry to my dad that I'm being mean to her. If I didn't know that woman absolutely hates children, I wouldn't be surprised if she tried to get my dad have a do-over baby. As if that would work. Dad got a vasectomy after I was born. However, I really like my stepdad, 34 male. He's genuinely nice to me, balances that careful balance between not really trying to parent me, but still being a reasonable authority figure, think like an uncle, and listens to me ramble about my hobbies without being judgmental. I also feel like the way they treat my parents actually matters in my perception of them. Stepmom treats dad like an ATM machine, but gets upset whenever he spends money on anything else. And stepdad treats my mom like she's the love of his life. And I don't know, I like seeing my mom so happy. My problem started on Father's Day. I made 2 posts on my Instagram where I honored both my dad and stepdad. Each of them had their own posts with different wordings to explain our relationships. Sometime later, I got a call from my dad making an issue out of it. Not because I made my stepdad a post, but because when it was Mother's Day, I only posted my mother and not stepmom, and she felt excluded and unloved. I explained my reasoning, but I'm still getting crap over it to this day. And both my dad and stepmom are low-key pressuring me to make a post about her this year. I'm sick and tired of this, y'all. And I just want to know if I'm the a-hole here because I'm starting to wonder if I'm in the wrong. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You were allowed your feelings. You wanted to say something nice about your stepdad. You don't have anything nice to say about your stepmom. So you didn't say anything at all. You can probably change the custody agreement if there is one, because at your age, what you say should work out. They really can't stop you. Not the a-hole. Stand your ground. Write a letter with numbered points as to the crap your stepmom has been doing to you when you are around. Then remind your dad that you are the child and she is an adult. And if she is upset that she didn't get a shout out on Mother's Day, then she needs to read your points for the explanation. Do not give in, because she'll continue crying to her dad whenever you post or do something for someone else because you didn't do anything for her. Here is your mantra. No one is entitled to receive anything from you, whether it's a gift or a shout out on social media. Nah, forget the letter. Put the crap she does in the Mother's Day post she's so desperate for. The picture should be a nice wilted bunch of yellow roses, yellow for friendship, because she's thoroughly killed any desire hope you might have to be her friend. She should finish with, if you want me to care for you like I do my stepfather and make public posts about how great you are, you need to try being a decent human being to me. Maybe even try being nice to me on occasion. So, happy Mother's Day. I hope you like your post. Not day haul. You should record her secretly being mean to you and then post that on Mother's Day. Then anytime afterward, if you ever have to deal with her and she starts acting up, just say, sweet, more material for my next Mother's Day post. Or just generally malicious compliance of, my stepmother told me I needed to post about her this year for Mother's Day. She said, add whatever mean things she's most recently said, if I didn't part anything. And then write a really amazing one about your mom. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for blowing up at my husband for how he reacted to the news of my brother's death? My brother passed away 2 weeks ago. He was in the hospital for weeks. He was very sick. During that time, I was very stressed out and worried a lot. I was busy with work, the house, my son, and my brother. My husband works from home and I work long hours. When I got home from the hospital, I argued with my husband about an issue. Instead of talking to me like an adult, he suddenly stopped talking to me and started texting me saying, that way we can have a civil talk. He'd do it all day knowing I'm stressed out and don't have time for this. Whenever I ask him to do something or ask him about our son, he'd stay silent and type his response in text then send it to me. He only talks to our son and has taken over house chores, but he doesn't talk to me directly. I'm not gonna lie, it made me feel awful because at the time I really needed to talk to somebody and he was being unreasonable. I ignored him, thinking he'll quit doing it soon. 2 weeks ago, at 7 in the morning, I received a call from my mother telling me that my brother just passed away. It was an awful, devastating moment for me. I was in shock, but calm enough to give my husband the news. I told him my brother just passed away. He was still in bed at the time but was on his phone. His reaction was that he looked at me for a few seconds, then started typing on his phone. My phone was still in my hand when I received a text from him saying, I'm sorry, and that's it. Didn't speak to me even after hearing the news. I didn't expect to do that. I lost it. I blew up at him and I started crying. I called his behavior unreasonable, and his reaction to this devastating news was awful. I was hurt, and he finally spoke up and said that he's the one who's hurt, and that I shouldn't have blown up at him because it wasn't his fault my brother died. He then left the room. A few minutes later, he started knocking on the door, apologizing and trying to say he didn't mean to make me feel bad. I got ready and I went to my mom's house. He called and texted, but I didn't respond. My mom asked about him and told me I shouldn't lash out at him because that will never solve the issue. After I told her. Not the a-hole. At a moment to prove that he was your partner, there to support you in one of the worst moments of your life, he chose his wants and how he felt. Text him your divorce lawyer's number. This is horrifying. I lost a sister a few years ago. I was in shock for an hour or so after. Somehow, it wasn't until I called my boss to tell him I would be out of work for a while that it slammed down on me. I was in a gas station parking lot, on my way to my mom's. A woman pumping gas came over to me, asked if I needed help, and when I said my sister was dead, she embraced me and cried with me for several minutes. A complete stranger in a dark parking lot offered me more love and support than Nobi's husband. The man is a complete monster. I'm genuinely horrified at how he treats you. Your brother died, and instead of hugging you and giving you comfort of any kind, he freaking texted you right in front of your face? This would end my marriage. To be this petty after hearing about my brother's death is just cruel. I'm so sorry for your loss, and for the fact your husband is more interested in winning an argument with you than consoling you. Not at a-hole. Stonewalling is one of the greatest predictors of divorce. 1. Criticism. 2. Contempt. 3. Defensiveness. 4. Stonewalling. Yeah, I'd say Opie's husband is taking each of the 4 horsemen of divorce pretty neatly. Not at a-hole. You dealt with his bizarre, thoroughly immature behavior for 2 weeks, and when he carried on with it at one of your most vulnerable moments, you couldn't hold back. I get it. I get it all day. I'm really sorry for your loss. I hope things at home get better soon. You can't be dealing with all that nonsense at the moment. Update. Am I the a-hole for kicking out my mother-in-law in the middle of the night? Original story. Some background. I, 32 male, and my wife, 25 female, have been together for 5 years and married for 3 and are expecting our son right now. We have our ups and downs when we first got together because I was fresh out of a horrible relationship and I was her first boyfriend. But I had always noticed that she was really demeaning about herself and she was always really disappointed in herself. And this was just 6 months into our relationship, and it hurt to see her like that since she's an amazing woman. I convinced her to go to therapy for her. And we would do couple therapy because I did really love her in a short amount of time. And during therapy, I learned that her parents were narcissists who only loved her brother, their golden child. And when she relayed the mistreatment she faced, I honestly cried. And that whole experience made us the strong couple we are today, and the strong woman she is today. Back to present. My mother-in-law and father-in-law have gotten a little better over the years, which is why we are at low contact from our no contact position. My mother-in-law came to visit us. They live overseas, since my wife is pregnant. And it has been only a week and my wife's mood is completely dimmed. This happened at night when we were sleeping. My wife went to get some juice since she was craving it while I went to the washroom, and came back to see glass on the floor and my mother-in-law shouting at my wife. I couldn't handle my anger and shouted at her to get out, and told her if she didn't, I was gonna call the police, so she begrudgingly got out of the house. I calmed my wife down, and she told me mother-in-law had gotten mad at her because she wanted to drink apple juice because it's bad for the baby, and how she doesn't deserve to have a baby if she wanted to kill it. I'm now getting calls from her family saying I'm an a-hole because I kicked her out, and I even got a call from my parents saying it was an a-hole move, and I could have let her stay the night. I understand I might be the a-hole because I kicked her out in the middle of the night, but at that moment, looking at my wife shaking, it was the best option. So Reddit. Am I the a-hole? Edit. For people asking me about what kind of apple juice my wife was drinking in the messages, she was drinking natural apple juice, which she makes herself from fresh apples, not the one from the market. And now for the top comments before reading the update. So much not the a-hole. Go back to no contact, unless you want this kind of behavior around your baby. I agree wholeheartedly. Opie's in-laws have not proven capable of introspection, so at the very least, it's time for at least absolute minimal contact. Put them on an info diet. Be a grey rock. Establish firmer boundaries now. Not today, Hall. Your in-laws are toxic people. I'm proud of you for protecting your wife from their garbage. They don't deserve a place in your family's life. Thank you. For a second, I did really believe that they were getting better and not being toxic. But that was just a lie, I guess. The only way mother-in-law's behavior that night is only even 10% okay is if your wife was drinking an entire huge bottle of straight whiskey. Apple juice is perfectly fine for an expecting mother. Not today, Hall. It sounds like your mother-in-law really only came over to control your wife and what she does during her pregnancy. If she didn't want to get kicked out, she should have acted like, oh, I don't know, a respectable human being? Not today, Hall. Who says that to a pregnant woman? Over juice? She's lucky you didn't tell her to go screw herself. And now for the update. Thank you to everyone who responded to my post, and thank you to everyone who voted not today, Hall, because I was really conflicted for a few days after the incident. And I also agree that I could have controlled my anger better. A lot has happened since I posted. Me and my wife went to therapy, where she told me the reason she accepted her mother's request to come was because she saw how her mom treated her brother's kids. So she wanted that for our son too, and she really did believe that her mother had changed for the better. But as explained by our therapist, that some narcissists refuse to change. My wife and I have written one letter and sent it to every one of her family member who had told us we were in the wrong, which basically said that her mother never cared for her and never would, and we didn't want that around our children. Then my wife wrote about several instances where she was subjected to emotional abuse, and even though everyone knew, no one did anything except for her grandma, her father's mother. She said she's tired of always being the bigger person, but now she would be selfish for herself and our child. And if anyone disagrees, they're welcome to cut contact, as she wouldn't miss people like that in her life. Something which shocked both of us was when her father called and asked what happened, and she narrated everything. Her father, being the typical narcissist, tried to gaslight, but with my support and her therapy, she put her foot down and asked her father if he had ever cared about her, because it never felt like they did. She narrated every instance from her childhood to her adulthood where she was subjected to emotional abuse, and how her brother always came before her. Her dad was silent throughout the call. And in the end, all my wife said that for her currently, she doesn't have parents, and hung up. By the end, all my wife did was cry, and I cried with her. I also called my parents, asking how they could not take my side knowing the history because they really love my wife, which is why it was hard listening I'm in the wrong. And they told me that it was because her mother had called them in hysterics, and told I was physical with her. I was not. After learning the truth from me, they came over to apologize, and my mother held my wife. I am an only child, so I and my wife are everything to them. I would like to point out that we're in the metropolitan area, and there are plenty of hotels, so I wasn't worried about my mother-in-law finding a hotel. She's loaded. Money isn't an issue. For now, we are just waiting for the little one to be born, and my wife is much happier and free from her toxic family. Great to hear that things are resolving the way they likely should. I hope your parents never side against you like that again. They had no reason to believe mother-in-law's horrible account that their own son was an abuser. That part is the biggest betrayal for me out of all of this, as wife's parents are already known narcissists. Yeah, that concerned me how all it took was one hysterical call, and his parents instantly believed her despite knowing about her and her past. While that response definitely gets a side-eye, it's actually not that uncommon. A lot of people who don't have experience with toxic people have a really vague and inaccurate idea of what that behavior looks like. Even if they understand consciously mother-in-law's an a-hole and has been very horrible in the past, they don't really get how manipulative they can be, or how casually/easily they lie. So the parents receive a phone call in the middle of the night from a hysterical mother-in-law claiming Opie got physical. Even though they've been warned, they instinctively believe it because they can't wrap their heads around someone who can turn hysterical crying on and off like a tap, or why someone would lie about something that extreme and easily disproved. Hopefully they're quick learners and appropriately apologetic, but it's worth remembering that people like the mother-in-law use those kinds of manipulative tactics because they're super effective at short-circuiting people's logical defenses and getting them on their side. This almost makes me glad I have the experience I do with narcs and their tactics, but I hate that anyone should have to deal with said narcs and tactics in the first place. Good on both of you for sticking to your guns and getting all this out in the open. Narcissists thrive in partial information. By sharing this with everyone in your extended family, it puts the mom in the spotlight where it will be a lot harder to get away with it. Congrats on making it through. I had a mother like that. I left home and went no contact when I was 17. It took me until I was 30 to make that stick. The longing for a loving parent is strong. Between those years, I let my mother back in 3 to 4 times. I couldn't give up on her. The first time, it took about 3 months for me to shut her out again. The last time, it took about an hour. As I got healthier mentally, it was easier to see the inappropriate behavior and shut it down. My mother had some epic meltdowns. So you aren't finished yet. Be vigilant. Be supportive. Don't expect perfection from your wife. She will falter, but expect her to handle things better each time. She will get there. And tell your wife a week is impressive. She snapped out of it faster than most. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my sister out of my home after she told me it was karma that I can't have kids? I, female 32, have been trying to get pregnant for 7 years now and have been unsuccessful. Diagnosed with PCOS later in life, I've had 5 miscarriages that have taken a massive toll on my physical and mental health. It has left me feeling like a massive failure as my partner, male 36, desperately wants children, and I'm unable to give him this. He never makes me feel badly about it, but I know he's upset. His parents are in ill health and they want grandchildren more than anything. Recently, I had a massive argument with my sister, female 34, after my last miscarriage. I was upset and asking her why this kept happening to me. She shrugged and said it was probably to do with the abortion I had when I was 19. Honestly, I was gobsmacked at how nonchalant she sounded. She knew there had been health reasons behind it and had been supportive at the time. My health has been so poor that I needed an operation and had spent months recovering. Also, she knows how guilty I felt that I wasn't able to carry it to full term. I asked her what she had meant, and she said that our decisions always come back to haunt us, and that I needed to understand that I'd brought it on myself. That some people just weren't meant to have children, and it was God's way of telling us to stop. She wasn't being mean, just blunt, but my hormones were all over the place, and I ended up kicking her out of my house and telling her not to contact me again. Soon after, I got loads of phone calls from my other sister, mom and dad, and even my sister's husband, basically saying I had overreacted and was being a nahal, that I had to make things right and apologized. I refused and haven't spoken to any of them since. My partner doesn't want her back in our house anytime soon after what she said. Am I the a-hole for agreeing with him over my family? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You don't ever say something like that to someone. If she wasn't on the lease or paying rent at all, you have every right to kick her out. She's an adult. She can figure out her own living situation without having to room with people she thinks so lowly of. By the way, I'm so sorry you're having difficulties. I wish you all the best in the future for a large, happy family. If she wasn't on the lease or paying rent at all, you have every right to kick her out. That's the thing. I don't think the sister was even living with Opie at all. The vibe I got from this is that she was merely visiting, especially because sister's husband was also mentioned. All this hullabaloo from the family over making her leave a house she was visiting. I couldn't tell if it meant a roommate or guest situation and didn't want to assume, but her not being on a lease covers both bases. Person on the lease can kick out whoever they want if she's just a guess. Either way, she is a massive and manipulative a-hole who probably told a way different story to the family to act like she didn't say something completely atrocious to warrant getting the boot in the first place. Not an a-hole times 1,000. She is evil and completely lacking empathy towards you. Don't apologize. Don't take anything back and keep her out and anyone who takes her side. Our decisions always come back to haunt us, and that I needed to understand that I'd brought it on myself. That some people just weren't meant to have children. I think Opie needs to tell her family that our decisions always come back to haunt us, and that sister needs to understand that she's brought this on herself. Some people just weren't meant to be allowed in Opie's house. OMG, this is absolutely perfect. What kind of deranged monster is the sister? And she has a damn cheek to bring God into it too, which tells me she is one of those pseudo-Christian a-holes. Well, she may not be allowed to back in Opie's house, but I'm sure she will be welcomed to hell with open arms. Not a-hole. A miscarriage is not something you should try and guilt a woman about. That's messed up. She was out of line. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not helping my brother get his kids into the same school as my son? My brother, 34 male, and I, 29 female, are not close. We see each other once or twice a year at most, despite living 30 minutes from each other. We both have kids the same age. My older son is the same age as his daughter. So back when my husband and I had our oldest, we talked about where we wanted him to go to school. Option A was the school we were zoned to at the time and it was okay, but with plenty of people who hated it. Option B was not super popular at the time. It was seen as a less than perfect choice by most for being less bothered with grades, according to several reviews. But for us, it was perfect. They had great teacher reviews from parents of kids going there. Kids adored it, and their policies were ones we really liked. So we made the choice to move to get into the zone for School B. Once our son started school, we had no regrets. Back then, my brother thought we were dumb and talked crap about the school choices. I remember seeing him that Christmas and him saying it was lazy parenting to not consider grades over everything else. Right now, he is eating his words, and it's the most we've talked in probably 20 years if I'm being honest. He reached out back in January to say how his kids hated school and how he and his wife were having a hard time with teachers and things like that. He mentioned trying to get the kids into the same school my son was going to. There was a layer of aggression in everything. Like, screw you for having it better. He started texting and telling me this stuff a lot. And then in April, he told me that he got rejected because of the district, and ranted a bit about how much we sucked, etc., to the point where I hung up on him. It was after that point he asked me if he could use my address to enroll the kids there. I told him I would need to think about it. My husband and I discussed it, and we said no. Our reasons were neither of us wanted to deal with seeing and hearing more from him, because while everything is emailed, we also get regular snail mail for certain things too throughout the year, and that would require more contact than neither of us wanted with him. I told him it wouldn't work for us, and when he asked why, I told him we have never been good, and we don't need to keep the conflict up by staying in touch more. My brother is pissed and has been pissed for months. I had to block him in WhatsApp, where he was texting and calling me, and I ended up leaving our family group chats because he was airing his stuff there. He called me Nehal, said I was selfish, that I should put the kids first. And at first, everyone was more on my side, but now others seem to think it wouldn't hurt and that putting the kids first should be the priority of a non-a-hole. So now I ask, am I the a-hole? Not an a-hole. Depending where you are, it's a crime to say you live at a place so you can enroll your kids in a better school. Even if it was legal, you don't owe him anything. OP, not only it is illegal, but your kid is registered in that school at that address. It seems pretty inevitable that the school will eventually put two and two together, and then you'll be open to possible prosecution. Possibly your kid being kicked out of the school. That's what I'd tell him and family. Not the a-hole. I was thinking this as I wrote my comment above. Given the OP is a woman and her kids might have a different last name than her brother's kids, they would almost undoubtedly question why two sets of kids with different last names reside at the same address. Not the a-hole. It's true that kids should be primarily the concern for parents and family, but your brother and his condescending and horrible behavior is the roadblock here, not you and your decision to limit contact with him. Also, if this is public school in the US, this may be residency fraud. I don't know what penalties might be for parties involved, but it's a risk that you really shouldn't have to take. Your brother's kids have options besides making you commit fraud. He could find another school or he could move into another district. Could also be less of an a-hole and work on being a caring and supportive family member. There was a residency fraud case locally a while back, and the parents ended up on the hook for the cost of schooling. I can't remember the exact number, but it was thousands of dollars. Update. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband that he is in fact just like his father? Original story. My 31 female husband 31 male, and I have 4 children. A son, 9 male, a daughter 8 female, and twins, 5 male. My husband and I were over the moon when we had our first 2 kids, and were just very excited. The twins were a huge surprise considering twins aren't common in either of our families, but we decided to keep them. However, my husband's attitude towards the twins has completely changed. I know it's tiring. We have other little children running around too, but it's not like we're overwhelmed. My mother, who is still very young and fit, lives with us, and she usually takes care of the kids when she can. We aren't short on money either, as both of us come from pretty wealthy families. However, I know that sometimes that isn't even enough when it comes to parenting, so I decided to leave it. However, instead of moping around or just being distant, he's become pretty mean with the twins. He's always finding something to shout at them for. I kid you not, he shouts at them for being identical as if they purposely planned it. Plus, he's the perfect dad with my older children. He only acts weird with the twins. I had enough yesterday when my youngest asked me why dad hates him and whether I want him to disappear too. There is absolutely no way a little kid would lie about something like this. I don't think he has the mental ability to make up things like that either. I was furious and confronted my husband, who was sound asleep in the bedroom. I asked him what his problem was and why he's being a nahal. He was confused, so I explained. He then accused my son of lying and saying nonsense. Obviously, I didn't believe him and told him that he was exactly like his father. He got pissed and left the house. I don't know where he went, and honestly, I don't give a crap. Side note, husband's father was, in short, a piece of turd. Very absent and cheated on his wife a lot. My husband vowed to never be like him, and gets very heated at the mention of his dad. Anyways, my mother, who heard the whole thing go down, told me that I did the right thing by shouting at him, but I should have not mentioned his father. My sister who I called later said the same and told me to make a post on here just to see. So am I the a-hole for telling my husband that he is exactly like his turd of a father? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. He sounds like an a-hole. People who are mistreated often become one themselves. This isn't acceptable. Not the a-hole, but I actually think you're failing your kids. You can't allow him to keep treating your twins like that. It's a terrible environment for them to be raised in. Your husband needs to get into therapy and change his attitude, or you need to leave him. Poor little boys. He is scapegoating them while treating the elder two like golden children. It's classic abuser behavior and Opie needs to step up and stop allowing it to happen. Not Dayhall. I'm sorry. I encourage you to keep being advocates for your twins, and if he is saying things like that around them, maybe limit their one-on-one time with dad. Things like that is so damaging to kids. And they're not too young to understand, as you pointed out. They know they're being treated differently. Whatever you do, don't subject them to someone who isn't kind to them constantly. Good luck. Maybe limit their one-on-one time with dad. Yeah, Opie, you are not Dayhall for being upset. But keeping your younger two in a home that is obviously emotionally damaging to them because the marriage is good for you, that's not being a good mother. As a parent, it's your job to put your kids first. And you clearly both have the money and support to do this without living with your husband. At a certain point, you have to realize that you can't just sacrifice the twins' well-being for everyone else in the family status quo. Now for the update. So first things first. I would like to thank all of you for your input. I read every single reply and have taken all your words into consideration. Secondly, I would like to clarify a few things. 1. When I said that my husband and I decided to keep the twins, I meant that we had to think long and hard about me giving birth to them. My first 2 pregnancies had a lot of complications, and according to the doctor, twins would be worse. Ultimately, we both decided that we would keep the kids and pray to God that I would be fine. It was tough. I almost passed, but I survived. 2. I had mentioned my husband's behavior before, and he always told me that I was overanalyzing him or overreacting. According to him, I was doing too much. I actually thought I was going crazy and felt like a witch for thinking my husband was mistreating the twins. However, my son's face showed me that I was right the whole time, and I should not have let it go on as much as I did. And I blew up on him. Yes, I said it to hurt him, but I also said it because I hoped that he would realize that he is turning into a jerk of a man, just like his father. Now on to the update. So, a few hours after I made the post, my husband messaged me saying that he was sorry for leaving the house abruptly and shouting, etc. I first asked him where he was, and he said that he was at his brother's house. I told him to get comfortable because there was no way he was coming back home. I then asked him if we could meet later, and he said sure. So the next morning I went over to his brother's house and we talked. And honestly, I'm numb. I'm going to keep this as short as possible, so I'll skip over the irrelevant stuff. So first, I apologized for comparing him to his father, not for shouting at him, but for the comparison, and he said it was fine. He apologized as well. Then I asked him why he was so mean to the twins. It took some time for him to tell me the truth, but he spilled. Like many of you suggested, he said that he felt like they weren't his children. Apparently the kids don't look or act like him and he got bad vibes from them. I rolled my eyes at the bad vibes part, but I assured him that I did not cheat on him, and that just because they don't look like him, they look a lot like me, doesn't mean they aren't his children. He said that he did trust me, but something about the twins was off. I told him that he wasn't making any sense and that he needed to see a therapist, ASAP. He kind of looked defeated before saying that he would. I forced him to make an appointment then and there in front of me. I then told him that he wasn't coming near any of the kids until he sorted out his issues, because the children are going to be heavily affected by him. I mentioned some of the things you guys said about how much words hurt and how kids remember. At this point, I had some hope that he would get better, that there was a slight chance of us becoming family again. But then I asked him one more question. Did he ever physically hurt our twins? Somebody mentioned this in the replies of my original post and it had been killing me. I needed to know. He said yes, but only a few times when they were being difficult. I was shocked. He hit our children and I was clueless. He said that it wasn't hard and that the twins were throwing things and wouldn't calm down, so he hit them. He didn't mean to and lost control. I didn't want to hear anymore and immediately left before I did something. I went home, and when my mom asked how it went, I cried. I sobbed in her arms. I don't know where I went wrong and why everything was going downhill. You hear these things happen in news or in movies, but you never realize that it could be happening to you or your babies. I then made sure my kids were okay. I asked my twins first if Dad ever hurt them. They said yes, and one of them even said that he was scary. I asked my eldest two if Dad ever hurt them, and they said no. I asked the two if they ever saw Dad hit the twins, and my son didn't know, but my daughter did. She even said that they deserved it. That ruined me even more. I mentioned that my daughter had been starting to treat the twins like her father, but I managed to stop it. Obviously, she isn't mean to their face anymore, but it's obvious she thinks low of them. So, taking advantage of the money I am privileged enough to have, I have decided to put all of them in therapy with the best people I could find. When they asked where their dad was, I told them that he was busy with work and wouldn't be home for a bit. I honestly don't know if that was the right call, but I don't want a man who hits kids in my house or near my children. I'm just numb. I've cried so much that I cannot cry anymore. I can't be angry because I let this happen for so long. I can't be guilty because I need to stay strong for my children. I still don't know what to do. Like I've said a billion times, I'm so numb. It's like all the joy has been sucked out at me. Thankfully, my sister moved in, and both her and my mother have been supporting me a lot. I felt like letting it all out, and talking about it on this post would help me feel better. But I still keep getting flashes of anger, sadness, guilt, etc., and I don't know. I know I'm making this about me, but I don't know how to handle all this information that's been dumped on me in one day. But I'm going to be strong for my children. I'm going to get the best lawyer I can find, and I'm going to do my best to protect my kids. Whether I let my husband into my life or the lives of my kids is still a huge question mark for me, as my eldest two have mentioned that they miss him. Now we'll see how things go, but I don't know if I can ever trust him again. He has messaged me a few times since our conversation saying sorry, and that he really didn't hate our twins. But I don't know. And yeah, once again, thank you random strangers on the internet for the replies and private messages. I don't know if this update was satisfying, and I highly doubt that I'll update again as I'm going to put all my time into helping my kids. But I hope you all have an amazing day. Thank you guys. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my mom I don't feel like I have sisters when she asked why I didn't invite my sisters to my birthday? I, 23 female, have two older half-sisters, 26 female, 27 female. My mom was married to their dad, divorced just after 26 female was born, and met my dad soon after and they had me. My mom shared custody of my sisters and my parents are still together. Growing up, they were always so close with each other. They would hang out, do fun stuff together, and it didn't include me unless my mom insisted on it. And sometimes it wasn't a fight. Just a thing of, oh, you're going to the park? Well, little sister can come. Outside of stuff like that, I was always left out. And when we all did stuff as a family, I felt very much like an only child. I was never included in the jokes. They'd want to sit with each other. They would sometimes not even talk to me, which wasn't always a bad thing, lol. Especially when we were teenagers. As adults, nothing much has changed. I have often asked them if they wanted to do things, and they are either too busy or they forget to show up and just never bother following up when they do. And they have done plenty of stuff without me. My oldest sister got married and had our middle sister in her wedding as her bridesmaid and didn't include me in any of it. I was just a regular guest, which again is fine, but it just sets the relationship. I didn't actually get to talk to either of my sisters the whole wedding. Not sure if it was deliberate, but yeah. A few years ago, they got matching sister tattoos, and the tattoos in question reference having only one sister. For me, that was when I kind of stopped caring, or started working on not caring. I had never known how to feel about it before, but I realized what it was. For years, they treated me not as a sister, but as my parents' child. Their mom's child, but not their sister. And I feel like I have gotten to the point where I'm okay with that, so long as I can treat them the same. So my 23rd birthday, I had some people over for snacks and stuff. Friends and family, but I didn't invite my sisters. I haven't been invited to their birthdays in years either. My mom questioned me on it, and I said I hadn't thought of it. She told me that wasn't possible. She told me she thought we had all moved past that stuff, that we're sisters. I told her it doesn't feel like I have any. It never did. They have each other and I'm on the outside. Her kid, but not their sister, and that it was fine. And after all these years, I would rather just move on. She told me it was horrible to say it feels like I have no sisters. And I told her that technically we are, but we do not have a close sibling relationship and I have never felt like their sister. My mom is mad at me for what I said to her. She's also mad at them for treating me how they did for so long. She went off on how she had talked to them so many times about this. But she's so pissed at me for saying what I did. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Simply tell her, your mother, to read their sister tattoos. That says it all, and it is recent. Yes, exactly. You just told the truth. This is a situation they, and your mother included to some extent, created. When it started, they were children, and she could have changed their perspective. It's too late now. Not a a-hole. Your half-sisters have shown that they don't acknowledge you as their sister, so you have a right to feel that way. Your mom is an a-hole for making it seem like that's your fault you don't feel that way. They have been a-holes to you, so I'm glad that you have grown to not care about the exclusion they have done to you. I'm sorry your mother tried to make your birthday about them. Of course not. Speaking your truth isn't wrong. And your mom is aware of the issues, and probably feels guilty about not being able to make it different, but she still shouldn't shut you down for saying it. Your sisters seem to have had plenty of chances to make a relationship with you. I imagine it's possible things will change in the future, but I think your goal of getting okay with how things are is probably the best thing you can do about it for yourself right now. Pretending it's not how things are won't help anything. Not the a-hole. Neither is your mom, but she does need to give you space to feel how you feel about it. I can't imagine what could change in the future with how clear they've been with how they feel about me. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for calling my in-laws gold diggers for insisting to know how much my new job pays? I'm male 28, Canadian, and my fiancé female 26 and her family are from Latin America. My mother and father-in-law found out about my new job and wanted to have a private conversation with me without my fiancé, so they invited me to their house. They invited me into their guest room. My father-in-law asked me to leave my phone and keys at the dining table. They started talking about my new job. They had no idea how much I get paid and asked me to tell them about my salary, but I politely declined to tell them. They asked why. I just bluntly told them it was none of their business. Father-in-law chimed in, saying, You're marrying my daughter. Damn right it's my business. And kept on about making his daughter's future secured. I assured him that his daughter is in good hands. And besides, money isn't everything, and love and respect are what's important. Mother-in-law disagreed, and said that money is an important factor, then gave examples of issues I'll have in my marriage if I'm not capable of providing for my family. I refused to tell them again, assured them that I'm doing well financially, so no worries. Mother-in-law refused to drop it. Claimed I was being disrespectful by treating them like they were some strangers asking about how much I get paid, and demanded I give her a number. I got so annoyed and wanted to excuse myself to the bathroom, but father-in-law got up and locked the door. I asked what the hell he was doing. He told me to calm down and that he'll unlock the door when this conversation is over. I blew up and told them that their behavior is unacceptable, and what I earn is none of their goddamn business. Then told them that only gold diggers behave like this. And right then, they were giving me huge red flags. Mother-in-law gasped loudly, and father-in-law immediately unlocked the door and asked me to leave his house. I grabbed my phone and my keys and walked out. Mother-in-law already called my fiancé and was crying, saying I disrespected them in their house and called them gold diggers for just asking how I was doing with my new job. My fiancé was upset, but I explained what her mom and dad did. She said I not only hurt her parents, but hurt her as well by calling them gold diggers, and I owe them an apology, but I refused to. I asked if she thought what her parents did was okay, but she reminded me that she's with me because she loves me whether I'm rich or poor, and it doesn't matter what others think. My fiancé never cared about money nor acted materialistic. She works as a babysitter and happy with it. She said that I needed to apologize for calling them gold diggers and hurting their feelings for being worried about us. Although I assured them I'm doing well financially, and that should have been the end of it. But I guess I escalated. They escalated, and now I'm refusing to apologize. My relationship with them might suffer if I don't. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, but deeply consider getting a prenup and reevaluating your relationship. Your in-laws are gold diggers, and your fiancé's reaction to it is deeply disturbing. She has her parents' back before yours. Just because your fiancé may not be exhibiting materialistic behaviors now, doesn't mean she won't ever, given what you just witnessed with her parents. The apple clearly doesn't fall far from the tree. Not the a-hole. Legally, by locking the door and refusing to let you leave, it could be considered kidnapping. 100% on the prenup. Not the a-hole. Locking you in was so past the line of, okay, I would reconsider marrying into this crazy family. They locked you in a room with them without your phone or keys. Definitely not the a-hole. If you're going to try to make it work with her, set boundaries now. Do not apologize for acting like anyone would in that situation. They weren't just rude, they were threatening. And the thing is, I'm sure your girlfriend knows how they are. First story is titled, Update. Am I the a-hole for pouring my husband's sweet tea down the drain? Original story. I lost my part-time job due to COVID and I've basically become a little housewife. I'm fine with that, as that's always been my role in my relationship anyways. It's just less hard to keep up with now. I'm also in school for nursing, but obviously I'm doing that from home. My husband works full-time and works hard. His commute to work is very long, over an hour each way. We go running together every day, and because I know it's a lot of stress for him, we meet 20 minutes away from our home so he doesn't have to come home and drive back out. He calls me when he's 20 minutes away and I leave. Today, I was 7 minutes late as I had to turn off all the lights and get myself together before leaving the house. When I got there, he coped a major attitude with me for being late. Refused to even speak to me. For being 7 minutes late. I tried to explain that I had to put my shoes on and turn out the lights, but he wouldn't talk to me. The run was very awkward, and when we got home, he said that he felt he had every right to be angry and stomped off upstairs. I've had a lot of pent-up feelings about the fact that he has always expected me to be at his beck and call. It's like he thinks the whole world revolves around his time schedule because I lost my job. Anytime he's hungry, thirsty, he yells my name. He doesn't even serve his own plates anymore. It's like he thinks I just sit in the dark with my hands folded, waiting for him to call. At this point, I knew he was being ridiculous, and I was just so upset that I did something that may make me the a-hole. When he came downstairs, I told him that he could make his own dinner, his own lunch tomorrow for work, and I looked him straight in the eyes. I poured a pitcher of sweet tea I make him every week down the drain. And I said, you can make your own freaking sweet tea too, you ungrateful brat. And I walked out and drove to my mom's house. So, am I the a-hole for that overreaction? I was just so annoyed. Now for the top comments before reading the updates. Not the a-hole. I felt like the everybody sucks crowd had a point, until I saw he's 31 and you're 19, and he specifically wanted a housewife. Look, age gap relationships can work out fine and be perfectly healthy, provided the older partner treads with care. He has an obligation to be especially mindful, patient, kind, and to make your needs and comfort the focus of the relationship. He should be letting you guide everything, following your lead, and not concerning himself with what he wants. Otherwise, he's just an exploitative creep. No. 19 and 31 is never gonna be okay. That means at 30 he went out and found a girl that was legal by the skin of her teeth and married her as fast as he could. That is so deeply not okay. I mean, clearly this dude was looking for a hot young bang maid, but I don't see any scenario where a 30-year-old can go after an 18-year-old without being a creep. Typically, when people do creepy stuff like that, it's because they can't get a person in their own age group, because there is something troubling about them. It sounds like this dude has major low self-esteem and insecurity issues. I am a year younger than this guy. I would run for the hills once I saw a red flag that intense. Same with the expecting a subservient housewife. Okay, so there's a lot here. Girl, you're 19. You and this man are not equals. He thinks of you more as a maid than as a partner, and that's not going to change. You've got a whole life to live, and you can't limit yourself to serving an older man who doesn't care about you forever. Leave. Find a job, even a crappy one for now. Find local food pantries. If you can't afford a cheap place right now, try to stay with friends. You are worth so much more than this. Nothing wrong with being a housewife, but only in a fair partnership, which this is clearly not. Go live your life, not an a-hole. Please leave before he locks you down with babies. I was going to say you probably overreacted a little bit, but then I saw that you are 19 and is 31. Of course you overreacted. You were still just a kid at that point, who was spotted by a 30-year-old man as being vulnerable. He has groomed you and placed you in exactly the position he wanted. A young girl he can sleep with and keep tied to the house and to him. He got mad about 7 minutes because he is training you to be scared of letting him down at all, or be even 7 minutes late to something. So by getting angry, he expected you to roll over like the dog he thinks you are and beg for forgiveness. It must have been a shock to him that you didn't do that, and I'm honestly very concerned about you going back to that house where he could possibly punish you. Please be careful. Now for a little update. I deleted my edits because I wanted to do an update, as I see a lot of kind, wonderful people so concerned about my well-being. I want to thank each and every one of you for being so supportive. I don't have any friends anymore, and all the messages and comments have made me feel like I have a support group. For now, I'm staying at my parents' indefinitely. My mom is helping me write a list of all the reasons I'd want to stay and all the reasons I'd like to leave. I have always been a very independent person, and I think I've been lying to myself about my situation for a long time. I called him to tell him I wouldn't be coming home, and he didn't really seem to care much, which did hurt a lot. Either way, I'm going to get through this, and I'm going to get my degree. For those of you concerned about kids, don't worry, I have an IUD. Again, thank you all so much. Your love and support means more to me than I can express. Now for a full update. So, it's been a few days since my original post. Everyone was so kind, helpful, and supportive. I received so many messages, and I want to thank each one of you for them. They meant more to me than you know. Well, I've left my husband, and it really wasn't over this one incident, but really a buildup of many. Before I even made a post, I wasn't completely blind to what he had been doing in terms of control. As weird as it seems, sometimes I just forget I am an adult, and I don't have to just yes sir and listen to any man that's older than me. I'm an adult now. I make my own rules. I feel sick saying this, but I realize I had been viewing him as a parental figure and not a partner. It kind of makes my stomach twist to even type that, but that is what it is. I don't really want to analyze it right now. It's too gross. I'm honestly going through a really tough grieving time right now. I feel like such a failure. What's worse is that he does not care in the least. When I called him to tell him I was leaving, he said, "Okay, let me know when you want to grab your stuff. We can have you moved out ASAP." And that was it. That was all he said before he hung up the phone. I'm really hurting. I loved him so much, and I think part of me just wanted to see if he was willing to fight for me and apologize. He was not, so that's that. But although I'm hurting, I feel free. My mom has welcomed me back. She's so happy I am divorcing him. I got together with my friends who he wouldn't let me see. I watched TV shows he told me were too childish. And I've been wearing ugly sweatpants and oversized t-shirts that he always said made me look like a man. So thank you, all of you. I got a wake-up call I desperately needed. I don't even want to be a housewife. I never wanted that for me. No hate on anyone who does. Honestly, guys, it was hard and lonely work. I'm going to be a registered nurse and then move on to my master's. You've all encouraged me in the best way possible. Now for some top comments. Oof, I was just about to ask what the age difference was. Female 19, male 31? Thank God you hadn't invested more time in that relationship. I'm so glad to hear you're starting to find your way to a better place. Bruh, and they're married. That means he knew her before. What the hell? That creepy cheap a-hole. Instead of paying for a goddamn housekeeper, he hung around high school kids to nab himself a housemate he could sleep with. When someone who is 31 is dating/married to a literal teenager, it's because no one within their generation could stand them. You are so much not a failure for leaving. It's great that you recognized the abuse and removed yourself from that situation. As for his reaction, he's trying to trigger you into going back to beg for his love. It's just more manipulation. All the best to you. Thank you. I have already made a decision to not see him unless my parents are with me, just in case I have a moment of weakness. Every day is getting easier. Good for you. Please get legal advice now before you move your stuff/return the key, especially if the house is marital property. Not a lawyer. Not sure if it matters, but I would want to check with a lawyer first for that very reason. Don't let him get out of this marriage with more than his share just because it's easier now. You may regret it later, and you deserve to start this new phase of your life with your head held high. He's very much about appearances, so most likely the divorce will be quiet. I don't think he'd try to pull any spiteful moves, especially since he loves his reputation. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my wife that it is ridiculous to complain about my mom playing favorites? My mom and my wife do not like each other. I'll assign 60% of the blame to my mom because she is difficult, and 40% to my wife because she escalates things. I get that isn't how life works, but I'm just trying to explain that they have been both horrible to each other. My mom wants very low contact with my wife and tries to see me when she isn't around. My mom said when my wife was pregnant, to me in private, that she knew we would probably keep the baby from her if she didn't work in things with my wife. I said I didn't like her phrasing. But yes, if you can't respect the mother, don't expect much of a relationship. My mom said then that is her choice, and she doesn't want much of a relationship. My wife sees my mom about once a month. My mom is nice and polite to my son, now 5, but not really interested, never offers to babysit or asks about him when he isn't around. My mom has a 6-year-old with my stepdad, and my wife has always claimed she favors her. I mean, it's her daughter. In my opinion, she is allowed to care more about her own daughter than someone else's kid. My wife complains that my mom is very maternal and affectionate with my sister but shows little interest in our son. She brought it up at lunch the other day with her parents, who hate my mom, and I said it is ridiculous that she considers it favoritism when one is her child and the other one isn't. My mother-in-law called me cold and insensitive and said she loves our son just as much as my wife or her brother. I mean, I was raised by someone who is proud of being cold, so maybe I am. My wife got mad at me in private for calling her ridiculous and also said my opinion is wrong and I should be more worried about this favoritism. Now for the top comments. Not a a-hole. Wife. I don't want your mom to have a close relationship with our child. Your mom. Okay. Wife. Shocked Pikachu face. Also, what on earth? Your wife thinks your mom should treat her own daughter, who she has a responsibility for, the same as her grandchild? She's being ridiculous. Reading the post again, it seems like the mom preemptively decided to not have a close relationship with her grandson because she didn't want to get along with Opie's wife. That doesn't change the fact that a mother has more responsibility to her own child than the children of others, but the cold relationship towards her grandson appears to be 100% the mom's doing. Let me make sure I have this straight from you, Opie, in the comments. 1. Your wife regularly tries to goad your mother into reacting by rubbing on your mom without her consent after being repeatedly asked to stop, as well as pulls childish pranks like licking cakes your mom was making for someone else. You find this behavior acceptable because your mom's general demeanor is sulky and aloof. 2. Your mom asks about how she will be able to have a relationship with your son given how things are with your wife. You told her to not expect a relationship with your son unless your mother respected your wife, who repeatedly violates your mom's boundaries and assaults her. 3. Your mom recognizes that both you and your wife are clearly using your son as a power play. She decides not to play your game, accepts the fact that she won't have a relationship with your son, and then behaves accordingly. 4. Your mom has her hands full with a 6-year-old child already, and you are upset she doesn't offer to babysit your son? The person neither you nor your wife want him to have a relationship with because your mom won't put up with your wife's BS. 5. You get together with your wife and her parents where criticism of your mom is an acceptable topic of discussion. When you do decide to pipe up, it is only to say that it is ridiculous to complain that your mom would care more about her own child than her grandchild, completely ignoring the actual reason why your mom doesn't have a relationship with your son. 6. Your wife, backed up by her parents, has found a new angle to criticize your mom and is now goading you into addressing this favoritism. Everyone sucks here. Your wife for regularly assaulting your mom and being a bully. You for acting like actions don't have consequences and letting your mom bear the brunt of your wife's shenanigans, particularly with acting like the favoritism is merely biological instead of a direct result of your actions. Your mom for being so petty about the relationship barrier that she won't even ask about how your son is doing and is purposely cold towards a 5-year-old who can't understand adult relationship dynamics. Your mother-in-law for the one-upping. You all sound exhausting. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for rudely correcting my husband's friend after he repeatedly called me his girlfriend? So I will start this off by saying my husband and I got engaged and married young. We've been married 4 months. I'm 22 and he's 24, and we got engaged at 20 and 22. Throughout our engagement, people always downplayed it, acted like it wasn't a real engagement, and people were surprised when we announced we had gotten married. I always felt like people thought we weren't a serious couple, so it's definitely a sore spot for me, and it still is. Which is why I think I could be the a-hole here because I'm being sensitive. I recently encouraged my husband to make more friends, and after a while of talking to this guy, we decided to go on a double date. The guy's girlfriend couldn't come, so it was just us and him, which is awkward. He starts asking questions about us and repeatedly refers to me as my husband's girlfriend. Both my husband and I corrected him a couple times, and he would apologize but keep doing it. Finally, after a few times I go, "Dude, I'm not his freaking girlfriend, I am his wife." And I flash both our wedding rings. We soon say goodbye after that, and he texts my husband and says he doesn't think they were compatible and that I was really rude. My husband isn't mad at me, but he is disappointed and I feel bad. I should have just kept my mouth shut. That's why I feel like I'm the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Meh, sounds like he had it coming. Weird that he kept using the word girlfriend and not, your name. When you were both at the table, was he ignoring you and speaking directly to your husband? Does your girlfriend want to order an appetizer, etc.? That is exactly it. He never directly spoke to me. Well, bullet dodged. Not the a-hole. This seems like some passive-aggressive behavior to me. It's not like he knew you guys as boyfriend and girlfriend. You just met him. So he's only known you as married, was introduced to you as married. It's really weird to constantly refer to you as girlfriend when he just met you as a wife. I know I have an issue with my boyfriend's friends that are similar. I have been with him almost a decade, and anytime I'm around and someone new comes around, I'm introduced as ex's girlfriend. And I'm like, please guys, it's been a decade. I have a name. We don't hang out with them anymore though, so we see where that got them. Lol. Not the a-hole. I hate people who think that just because someone gets married/engaged young, like, yeah, sure, they're like 21 to 24, but like, just let them get married if they love each other. Jeez. Sorry you had to deal with that, OP. And that's the end of this video, folks. As always, leave a comment and hit like and subscribe. And if you want more of this content, turn your notification on to get updated on the latest videos. And I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe. Update. My mother, 52, female, cheated and left me, 27, male, and our family to work in the adult industry, and now wants to come back and be my mom again. Original story. To give some context, my dad, 67, male, used to travel a lot to work and stay weeks away, so he and my mother had an arrangement where they had an open marriage. Don't know the details, but she was the only one that slept with other people. This happened to most of my childhood, as I can remember her leaving at night to go to clubs and parties, sometimes taking days to come back and neglecting me and my brother. I learned how to get groceries and cook when I was 8, so me and my brother would not starve. When I was around 13, my parents started fighting. Since apparently she had broken the deal in some way, my dad found out about the neglect and she started going into the adult industry. They separated, and for years I had no contact with my mother. I sent her texts and emails, some that even popped up as she had seen it, but she never replied. So one day I just gave up trying to contact her. I managed to stay in contact with some people from her side of the family, but a lot of them began hating on us. saying that we were too harsh on her, that we never supported her, that she did well leaving us, and gradually I also cut contact with them as well. She started working in the adult industry and got pretty famous in my country, got a lot of money, and I stopped using any adult websites as she was on the top pages of all of them. I gladly suffered zero to no bullying in high school because of it, as there were no ways of connecting her to me, and most of my friends that knew my mother didn't know it was her. She had dyed her hair, done a few surgeries and stuff. Well, I moved on with my life, joined the army, and I'm pretty well now. However, a year ago, out of nowhere she found me in social media and began to message me, asking how I was, commenting on how much I had grown up and trying to do some small talk. I just replied with one-word answers and even stopped replying once my nerve got the best of me. Apparently, she has retired, and after feeling an overwhelming remorse throughout her entire life, decided to contact us again. My brother was also careful, but essentially accepted her back. He was always close to her. My father is cordial with her, but only that. She has also asked her entire part of the family for help, as I began being bombarded with messages and calls from both those that criticized and supported me and my dad. I made it clear that I do not want anything to do with her, but they just keep on it, saying that she is remorseful, that she made a mistake but wants to make it right, that she has come back for us, etc. More recently, she somehow found out where I live, and I've been receiving random gifts at my doorstep with messages that were clearly hers. Things like a basket of chocolate that I liked when I was little, expensive clothes, she got my size wrong on all of them, flowers when my cat passed away, and even a very expensive hiking kit. I messaged her a few times to say that I don't want any of that, but she just pretends she doesn't know what I'm talking about, or just says she thought of me at that moment. I made it clear time and time again that I don't want anything to do with her, but she still persists, saying that she can be my mom again now and stuff like that. I don't know what else to say, so any advice is more than welcome. Now for the top advice before reading the update. I'm sorry, Opie. I'm sure it was difficult growing up without her and knowing what she was doing. She's probably remorseful now because she's growing older and she doesn't have any meaningful relationships in her life. She has her extended family, but not one of her own, and that's 100% her fault. She can be as remorseful as she wants, but too bad, so sad. It wasn't your decision to lock you out of her life. It was hers. Similarly, it's now your decision whether you want to let her back into your life, not hers. The tables have flipped. Some suggestions if you decide don't want a relationship with her. She will continue to love bomb you to try to get you to respond. Moving forward, I would ignore any communication from her. Don't contact her when gifts arrive. Keep them, give them away, etc. Just don't acknowledge them. And when she says she can be your mom again now, tell her that ship has sailed. You're no longer a child, and do not need or want one that abandoned you. Be blunt and cold. After that, do not respond to any communication. Block her on all social media platforms and set your profile to private. Indicate to your brother that you want to be in no contact with her. If she shows up to a gathering, you're free to leave. If she persists enough, take legal action to force her to stop. If she shows up at your house, feel free to not answer the door. You've made it clear you don't want to see her. I wish you the best, Opie. In addition to this advice, if you have any of the family that has been harassing you for her on your social media, make sure to remove/block them and be careful how much detail about your life that you provide to anyone that might be in contact with her. That will be harder if it's your dad or brother sharing information with her. And to expand on the no contact ever point, they're saying never respond for a very specific reason. When people are trying to get you to talk to them again and you respond for any reason, all that teaches the other person is what it takes to get you to respond. My social media is pretty much memes and cute animal pictures, but yeah, I had to ditch my Facebook and do another one because of some people on her family. I don't know if my brother is sharing information, but I'm sure my dad is not. Thanks for the tip. No matter their insistence, I'm not responding. You are under no obligation to allow her back into your life. Block her again, and her family, and dump all of the gifts she gives you. Stop entertaining her attention. If she still will not stop, I'd honestly recommend going to the legal route. Get a cease and desist letter sent out to her and her family. And if that doesn't stop it, go to the police to get her harassment on file, so it'll be easier to file a police report/restraining order in the future. I have donated or sent back all of the gifts already. Unfortunately, cease and desist letters are not a thing in my country, but I'm really thinking about filing a police report for harassment. Just don't know if they will accept since she never did it personally. I hate stuffs like this. Parents who legit abandon their child for years, and just because they suddenly feel guilty, aka they have nothing better to do, they expect their now grown children to just pick up where they left off? Really? The audacity and freaking entitlement. I'm so sorry you're in this horrible predicament. You don't owe this woman a damn thing. Not a damn thing. She feels overwhelming remorse? Oh, boo-hoo. She made her bed, and now she needs to permanently lay in it. Those other family members who are hounding you can pound sand and buzz off. Block them. Where the hell were they when she abandoned you? For all those gifts she's hurling at you, don't acknowledge them. Don't return to sender either. She's wanting a reaction, any and all reaction from you. She's desperate for your attention, and she will take it, good or bad. Don't feed into that black hole. Toss them into the trash and forget about it. Don't text her back, just ignore her. Block her everywhere and change your phone number. Expect this to escalate. If she doesn't get it, is persistent, and she realizes she's not getting anything back from you, she may just show up at your doorstep. If that happens, don't open the door and call the cops for trespassing. Cease and desist. You've made a good life for yourself. Don't let her back into your life. Good luck, Opie. Plus, all the do-gooder a-holes were enabling her because family. Someone you know told her your address. They could be acting as a spy. And now for the update. First, I would like to thank everyone that commented giving me some comfort, advice, or letting me unwind on their DMs. You all helped me a lot. I'm still trying to answer all of the comments and messages, but with work and family craziness reaching new heights, that might take some time. But know that your words are very appreciated, and I thank you all from the bottom of my heart. Well, to start the update, I decided to take the moral high ground and have a more polite approach. I know many of you wanted me to just send her to hell on a message or letter, but I thought this way would disarm much of her comebacks and maybe even make some of her family members shut up. I called her and asked me to meet me in a small cafe. No way I was meeting her in private. She got there and it looked like she had won the lottery. She had a smile from ear to ear and was almost jumping up and down, but her smile did fade when she saw my face. She sat down and tried to do some small talk, but I cut her off and began to rain on her parade. With all of the calm and patience I could gather, I told her that no matter what she does or says, there would be no way for her to be my mom again. I started to explain that she was a complete stranger to me now, that I still had resentments, reminded her that I tried many times to stay in contact with her but she refused, and even stated that I'm no longer a child. I'm almost 30, so I kind of don't need a mom anymore. Had to hold myself not to say something like, "A few years too late, huh?" I didn't even finish speaking when she burst into tears and began rambling about how sorry she was. That she was sorry for not seeing me grow up, sorry for ignoring me, that she would do anything for a second chance. She even told me that if her old work bothers me, she could have it all taken down and pay for therapy if I wanted. Apparently she didn't know I'm in therapy ever since I was a teenager. I politely refused, and since the conversation wasn't likely to progress, I just left after asking her once more to not contact me again. A couple of hours later, I was in the shower when my phone began exploding with calls and messages. She apparently once again told her family, and once again they were cursing or trying to convince me. That showed me that some of the more radical comments on my last post were somewhat right, and I decided to follow some of their advice. I swapped my phone number, also got a much better phone plan, cleaned my social media of any family members from her side, and told my lawyer to go forward with a restraining order. Thanks to the last post, I had it ready to go. Thanks again, everyone. She received the order a couple of days ago and immediately broke it by driving straight to my house to scream why I was doing that. I didn't come out and call the cops. Thankfully, they saw the restraining order and took her to the station for questioning. I was afraid they would ignore it or something, but I'm glad I was wrong. I'm now stuck here. Not sure whether what I did was 100% right, but at least I'm having some semblance of peace this last few days. She's still trying to send gifts, but I'm going legal on that too. I'm honestly not sure if there will be any more updates after this, but if it happens, I'll post on my profile due to the subreddit rules. But once again, thanks everyone. Thanks for sharing. Good luck with it all. Your relatives are horrible, man. Sorry you had to go through all that. You did the right thing. How dare she decide to come back into your life when it suited her, and when it was too late? I don't feel sorry for her. She now has to deal with the consequences of the choices she has made, which is on her. The fact that you feel guilty is a sign you're a good person who feel remorse as she forced your hand even further by coming to your house. But that doesn't mean you did the wrong thing. In fact, you have been very logical with your decisions. You should be proud of yourself with how you've dealt with things, Opie. Isn't it interesting how everyone's sorry and will do anything to have you back in their life after they've discarded you and everything meaningful and after they've had their fun? When people show you who they are, believe them. Sorry this happened to you. You did the right thing. Wow, I'm kinda scared to go back in your post history to find your original post. But I'm glad you stood up for yourself and I'm glad cops are helping. Now for the last story. My female 21 ex-husband, male 33, wanted divorce when I was sick with breast cancer. 2 years later, he's starting to contact me and my dad is supporting him. My ex-husband and I were married for 3 years. Our marriage was fine until I was diagnosed with breast cancer that he helped discover when he told me about the tumor he found in my left breast. First, he was supportive and was one of the first to encourage that I start treatment as soon as possible. Once I began experiencing side effects of my chemo sessions, he started having an attitude and became increasingly distant, both physical and emotional. It got worse with time. He stopped intimacy and no longer even wanted to touch me or cuddle me. He became cold and had a temper. It certainly affected my progress as he kept giving negative energy and caused me to cry constantly though he wasn't aware. He spent most his time on his phone. Even at the hospital, he'd ignore everyone and keep staring at his phone acting like a distant relative. The final straw was when he kept rejecting me, and then saying I can't blame him for our lack of intimacy and closeness because how I looked was a turn-off for him. I knew it was over. I was ashamed to vent to anyone because I foolishly blamed myself for what happened to me. I had plans for us to have kids and buy a house, even talked about having vow renewal, but all that changed and my condition... My illness somehow made me realize that he was not who I thought he'd be in every problem we face. We got divorced shortly after I completed my treatment. I got in therapy, but I did not focus on my divorce because even with therapy, this was very raw for me and very hard to open up about, but rather gave all my attention on improving my physical and mental health. I lived with my parents for a while. Recently, my ex-husband started contacting several family members. He had and still has a good relationship with my dad, which recently became problematic to me because my dad kept bringing me messages from my ex-husband, attempting to make contact with me. My ex-husband started coming over to the house to see my dad, but then they both tried to get us to talk, but I didn't feel comfortable with it. He's never dated after our divorce and stayed close to Dad. Dad thinks my ex-husband deserves to be heard by me, and that his intentions weren't to cheat since it didn't after our separation, but clearly was more overwhelmed and incapable of handling my illness. My dad kept pushing me to hear my ex-husband out and have grace for him, but I couldn't give him a straight answer. Just kept stalling, and I don't know why. My mom says I'm still in love with my ex-husband, and I'm just angry with him and suggested therapy for us too, but I'm unsure and feel like this isn't something that can be fixed after what he said and done to me when I was sick and feeling alone, even though we were still married. Now, for the top advice. His vows were in sickness and in health. In sickness, he showed his true colors. Why does this man who broke his vows to you deserve to be heard out? To give him the chance to abandon you again? Yes, this 100%. To piggyback off this, my husband isn't the most romantic, and that kind of sucks. But he is caring and affectionate, and when my health took a turn for the worst this year, and all the things we both lost, he was there holding my hand every step of the way. Yes, it was hard on him too. It is hard on a spouse, but that doesn't justify how cold and callous he was to you. I had open and honest conversations, and the stressful part wasn't maintaining our home and child. It was the fear of losing me and not knowing what to do without me. There's a big difference, and it sounds to me he just didn't want to deal with it. It sounds like Opie has made great strides to better herself, and I would hate to see all that hard work go to waste. It's not your family's decision, it's yours. Nope. Imagine if you end up sick again. Will he leave you like the first time? Yes, he will. You need to find some way of explaining to both your parents exactly how horrible your ex treated you in your most vulnerable state. Be firm and tell them to stop interfering in your life, or you'll stop visiting them and stop talking to them. Seems like they still treat you like they're a little girl who needs guidance because you don't know your own mind. Time to correct them. Her parents are pretty damn crappy, and they shouldn't need to have this explained. A child could understand this. But yeah, you're right. He showed you exactly who he was. This wasn't a young kid. He was a grown man who started treating a sick wife like crap. Life isn't sunshine and roses. You may get sick again, and he's shown you how he will act if you do. He is not capable or interested in being there when things are rough. That's all you need to know. First story is titled, Update. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to hide that my moms are gay to my girlfriend's parents? Original story. I'm 17 and started going out with my girlfriend 7 months ago. We were already chatting before school went online, and they asked her out after. So her parents want to meet mine when it's safe to do that and have dinner at their house. I'm cool with that, and my moms are too. But girlfriend told me that her parents don't know I have 2 moms, and she don't want them to. Not because they're raging homophobes, but they don't like that. She just says it will make them feel weird and uncomfortable and ask if only one of my moms could go. I don't know, I just don't see why I gotta lie. If we stayed together, obviously they will find out, and also that would be mean to ask my moms if one of them not go. I've never been embarrassed about it or weird, so don't see why it even matters. My girlfriend has been pissed at me ever since, and she just tells me to do it so it's not uncomfortable for her parents. Even my friends are saying it's not a big deal, and it's not like I'll get grounded for asking my moms to do this. I'm caught in the middle here because I don't want to lie about my moms nor exclude one of them, but everyone is acting like I'm being the a-hole for not doing this thing. Now for the top advice before reading the update. Not the a-hole, and I think you should consider whether this girl really values you if she wants you to hide your family. She's concerned about how her parents would feel, but she doesn't seem to mind hurting yours. Your parents may not ground you for asking, but they are likely to be hurt. It doesn't sound like that's something you want. The fact that his friends told him to just go along with it because it's not like he'll get grounded made me furious. I know they're just teenagers, but even at that age, you should know that the reason you don't do something hurtful isn't because you'll get grounded. It's because someone will get hurt. What a bunch of self-absorbed a-holes. Not the a-hole. Your girlfriend seems to have an issue with your moms. What if you two have kids and one of them is queer? Would you need to hide that from her parents too? This is your family, and if she and her family can't accept that, then she's not the one for you. Not the a-hole. My mom is gay, and the second my partner asked if one of my moms could attend a dinner, that would have been the end of the relationship. That's never, ever going to be okay with me. She has shown you where she stands on this. And you can talk to her, but honestly, it is unlikely to change in my experience. Not the a-hole. The embarrassment your girlfriend is fearing now will be 1000% more when they find out you lied about it. From her parents' side, you lied about something major and aren't now trustworthy. From your parents' side, annoyance to the girlfriend about her wanting you to lie. From her parents, anger that your girlfriend pulled this crap. From your parents, sadness because you went along with it. They'll be asking if you were ashamed of them. That's a whole bunch of crazy that can be avoided. And now for the update. So, we broke up. Yesterday, since it had already been days of us not talking. I listened to your comments and decided to ask how would she feel if I told her only one of her parents could go cause my moms are uncomfortable around heterosexual couples. She basically laughed and said it's not the same thing because that's a normal couple. That kinda got me, and I asked what's not normal about my moms. I think that's when she saw she messed up with what she said. She said she didn't mean it like that, and just knows it would be awkward and weird because her parents don't like that. Then I asked her if she would feel like that too, and she didn't say anything. We talked for a while, and she still wasn't getting how this would hurt my moms asking them to hide who they are. Then it got to where she admitted it would also be embarrassing for her parents to know I have 2 moms. And yeah, I wasn't gonna take that and told her we're done. Not gonna be with someone who's embarrassed about my moms or doesn't want others to know. That was it. My friends haven't said anything to me yet, but I think I'm just gonna block them out because I don't want to deal with their crap right now. I know I said in my comments I was thinking about asking my moms for advice, but since we're broken up, I'm not gonna tell them why. I only told my moms it wasn't working out with her, so we're done. They don't need to know why because I don't want them to feel it's their fault. They really liked my girlfriend. This would hurt their feelings knowing she was feeling that way. It's not my first breakup, but it still really sucks and I'm feeling sad. It is what it is though. Thanks for everyone's help and for telling me your own experiences. Stands and claps. As a parent, if my kid came to me and told me this, I would first feel hurt. But I'd quickly get over that and feel so damn proud that my kid stood up for himself, his beliefs, and his parents. So just know this Reddit mom is very proud of you. I don't want them to feel it's their fault. I don't think you need to worry about that. And yeah, they probably would be disappointed in her. Although I suspect they'll be more inclined to blame the sources she picked up that attitude from. But it might save you from well-meaning attempts on their part to try and fix things. Your call though. I think they'd be very proud of the way you've handled this if they knew the full story. And I'm sure there are better relationships ahead of you. One of my moms has a habit of still feeling bad over this kind of stuff. Like once in middle school. Some kids did say stuff to me, and she stopped going to my school events for a while so other kids wouldn't make fun of me. We had to convince her to go because I wanted her there. I just don't want them to feel bad. I think it's really great that you're shielding your moms from feeling guilty about the relationship ending. However, once you are in a better place and have gotten over the relationship, and maybe after getting into a different, happy relationship, I think it would be good to tell your moms about this, if it does come up. It's always nice to hear that someone you care about stood up for you. I gotta say, you handled this with a lot of maturity, especially for someone who's only 17. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for leaving in an Uber after what my husband did at the restaurant? Me, 31 female, and my husband, 35 male, have been married for 14 months. He is a middle school teacher and very close to his family. Loves to help out but can be firm at times. He adores his 1.2-year-old niece, his sister's baby. He always babysits whenever he's got nothing to do, and I help with whatever I can. We haven't gotten out for a nice dinner in a while, so I asked if we could go out to a new restaurant and try their food and have a good time together. He agreed. I immediately made reservations and took care of everything. Since I couldn't take the day off, I left work early and went to meet him there at the restaurant. I walked in and saw my husband sitting, and his niece in a car seat by the table. I asked, and he said his sister had work and wanted him to watch his niece. His family were out of town, so there was no one else beside him. I noticed the restaurant staff were giving us looks, since it's not a child-friendly restaurant, and I was worried the baby would cry or something. She was asleep then. We ordered our meals while he was calming his niece down because she was crying out loud. He kept asking the waitress about stuff they don't have for his niece. I couldn't take the looks from people unable to enjoy their meals because of the noise husband's niece was making. Especially when he started singing "You're Welcome" from a Moana movie while swinging her. I got up to the restroom. A few minutes later, I heard him arguing loudly. I went to see that he was actually trying to change his niece's diaper on the table. The waitress was arguing with him. I was in shock. The manager came after my husband said it'd take a minute to get it done. The manager spoke to me and asked me to leave eventually. I was livid. We left and I blew up outside. I asked my husband why the table while people were eating. That he could have told me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have picked a restaurant that doesn't allow infants. That he embarrassed me, ruined dinner, and got us kicked out. He started arguing with me like I was one of his students after I refused to get in the car. Giving me 0/10 for my reaction and claiming I picked a bad restaurant. He said that he was helping his sister and I needed to understand that. After the argument, I took an Uber and went home. He went to his sister's place and called saying I shouldn't have left like that. It'd make him feel guilty for wanting to help. But I didn't respond. Edit. I just want to say that my husband is the one who insists on taking his niece. He doesn't consider this babysitting. He just loves to be with her and take care of her. He said he wants us to adopt since it's our only way of having children. Medical reasons. He absolutely adores kids, so I understand his bond with his niece. But the restaurant incident was blamed on me. He thinks my reaction was over the top. And honestly, I have no idea why he thinks people should mind their own business when he's behaving like that in a public place. Now for the top comments. Not an a-hole. Who the hell changes a baby at the table and not in the restroom when they're in public? Why does he act like his niece is his kid and bring her everywhere? Especially when it's clear you're trying to have some time with just you and your husband. He absolutely embarrassed the hell out of you. And furthermore, tried to make you feel guilty for picking a nice restaurant when you were under the reasonable assumption you could have a nice dinner. You need to have some serious talks with your husband and your sister-in-law regarding boundaries and childcare because this is 100% not okay. Edit. I am aware that many men's restrooms still don't possess changing tables. However, you can either take the baby to the car or change them on the floor of the restroom as other users have suggested, or use the family restroom if one is available. There's zero excuse for changing the baby on the table of the restaurant and introducing a biohazard where everyone else is eating. You'd be surprised. I saw somebody actually do it at a dining table at a county fair. The owner of the place saw them through the mirrors he had wisely set up and came out screaming, justifiably, and they actually argued with him. And the restrooms of both genders had changing tables. Holy crap! That's disgusting. They argued with the owner? That's even worse. Like, go to the bathroom with the kid. Nobody wants to deal with the stank while they're eating. Not at a-hole. He should have told you so you could have gone somewhere else to eat. Also, changing diapers in the middle of your restaurant is absolutely not acceptable. First of all, I'm sorry for the late response. Yes, exactly. That's what bothered me. He could have simply let me know. I did not expect this from him, and it's the first time I see him do it. I told him about how others felt while they were eating, and he says he doesn't care and that they should just mind their own business. But this is a public place. He claims that I'm against the idea of him spending time with his niece, but that is not true. He was actually trying to change his niece's diaper on the table. Not a-hole. This is gross. Your husband should have given you the heads up so you could book a different restaurant or even decline the sister's request because it was your date night. Thank you for being the only self-aware adult at the table. Some places are just not suitable for young children. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my boyfriend he stinks? So, me, 22 female, and my boyfriend, 23 male. He has a tendency that when he wears his clothes for 2 to 3 days, he'll put the clothes back in the wardrobe even though they smell bad. His excuse is that he can't tell that they smell, so he doesn't know. So I usually sort out his clothes. It got to a point where they smell so bad, the smell catches onto other clothes and I have to laundry too often. I tried to tell him that even if you can't tell, it's common sense to put your clothes in the wash after a day or two. At the beginning, I told him nicely with him sulking and getting upset and saying, "Okay babe, I'll do it," meaning he'll never do it. I know him, and it's been going on for years at this point. Somehow, this turned into an argument, and apparently I don't know how to tell things nicely. Even though if I say it nicely, it's not good enough. If I kinda try to make a joke of it, he doesn't get it. But when I'm firm, I'm too cruel for him. So I gave him an example. If I am to wear the same clothes over and over again, the clothes will start smelling, and hence I will stink because of it. I told him the exact thing. You stink because of his clothes. He burst out into tears, saying, "You don't know how much that impacts me," and just left the house to take the dog out. I'm actually dumbfounded right now. I'm just sitting on the sofa, and I don't know if I should cry or laugh. I have tried every approach I can think of over the years. He always says, "Yeah, okay," but then the cycle repeats. I told him I'm not his mother, and I shouldn't teach him this kind of things. And even a young kid would know when the clothes smell. So, am I the a-hole for telling my boyfriend he stinks? Not the a-hole. He's a grown man who should know what basic hygiene is. You've approached it multiple times, and obviously you're at your wit's end. It sounds like he might be being a little bit manipulative by saying, "You don't know how much that impacts me," because it's not as though he is making active changes to his hygiene to begin with. You're just calling him out. You telling him that he stinks after multiple instances of having the same conversation can't be of news to him. I think it's more than a little manipulative. OP should know this say it nicely, ignore nicely said thing, say it firmly, gets called out for being too mean thing. Happens to women a lot. It's meant to shut you up entirely and it's a game you can't win. This is a problem. Also, you're doing his laundry? Maybe stop that. Not the a-hole, and frankly, I think this is a deal breaker. A mature human being needs to know when to wash their clothes, and needs to take responsibility for that. What else is he expecting you to do for him? Not the a-hole. If your boyfriend is an adult, he needs to learn basic hygiene. Does he shower often and wear deodorant? I just can't wrap my head around getting clean in the shower and throwing back on dirty codes. I'm currently working on teaching this lesson to 2 people I live with. I tell them they stink. They shower, then throw on the same hoodie they've worn for days. I threaten to put them and the hoodie outside. Then they launder the hoodie. The difference is they are my kids in their teens. Not day hall. As far you don't know how much that impacts me, I'd be tempted to tell him that the answer is obviously not enough, since he never changes.